Welcome again to Ancient Tales for Today. We begin looking through this old book at some very old stories. And the last time we talked about a royal son became a murderer on the run. Okay, now, after 40 years away from Egypt, we come now to the next lesson. This is number 44, the bush that didn't burn up. A bush, the ancient tales calls it Jingji. You can say Guanmu. Whatever it was burning but didn't burn up. Stay by for this very interesting lesson.
Number 44, the burning bush that didn't burn up. Moses had run away into hiding in a place called Midian. He had been forced to leave everything behind, including his own people, because he had murdered an Egyptian. He found a place to stay, and he ended up marrying one of the women of Midian. One day, after he had been there for many years, he came across a bush that was on fire. Then he noticed that even though it was on fire, it didn't burn up. It just kept on sending out flames of fire. Moses went up to the bush to take a closer look. As he went over, a voice called out from the bush, "Moses, Moses!" The bush on fire that doesn't burn up now talks. "You must admit that's very unusual." The voice went on, "Take off your sandals, because where you are standing is holy ground." Moses must have looked down at his feet. Holy ground? It didn't look any different to the rest of the desert floor he had walked over. Why was it holy? Then the voice from the bush told him, "I am the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." That's what made the ground holy, the presence of the God of his fathers. How would you have reacted? Of course, it would be clear that this was truly supernatural. Bushes don't catch fire and not burn up. Nor do they speak. You would certainly pay attention. When the voice calls you by name and identifies itself as the God of your fathers, what then? I think I'd be frightened. In fact, not knowing what was coming made me very frightened. For this meeting is not normal. What did Moses do? He covers his face. It's not the burning bush that is important. That just gets your attention. It's the reason for it that is important. Next time, we'll see why.
Okay, now we are talking about Moses. He had run away into hiding. That means that he needed to hide from the king of Egypt. 他要躲避这个埃及王. Okay, so he is into hiding. He had to run away into hiding. And he goes to a country called Midian. Now, the last time as we were looking at that, he had been forced to leave everything behind. 必须放弃一切. Okay? Including his own people, 连他自己的子民, 自己的民族. Because he murdered an Egyptian, 因为他杀了一个埃及人. Okay, now he's in a foreign country. By the way, the ancient tales say that he was there for 40 years. 40 years. And he was 40 years old when he made his mistake. So it's easy to figure his life. 40 years in Egypt, 40 years 40年在 Midian, okay? Now, he found a place to stay, okay? And he ended up marrying one of the women of Midian. 他找到一个能够驻扎下去 in other words, a place to stay, a place to live, a place to call home. And he ended up, 结果呢, okay, he ended up marrying one of the women of Midian. He married a Midianite, yeah, 加一个 ITE, Midianite ladies. 他就跟那边的人就结婚. So he's settling down. He actually becomes a shepherd. 他是要牧羊啊. Now, it doesn't say it in our story, but I'm just telling you that that's what the ancient tales say. One day, after he had been there for many years, 40年, okay, one day, 有一天呢, 他在 Midian 已经很久很久, he came across a bush that was on fire. Okay, he came across, he discovered, while he was walking, he discovered a bush. Now, normally we translate bush, 灌木. It's a little tree. But in the ancient tales, it's called jinji. It's still a bush. And the bush was on fire. Going on. Then he noticed that even though it was on fire, it didn't burn up. 然后他就发现 Notice 他就注意 that even though 虽然它在燃烧, even though it was on fire, it did not burn up. 没有烧灭, just kept burning and burning and burning. It just kept up sending flames of fire. Do you know what a flame of fire? 火焰. You know, the yellow things in a fire, that's called a flame. Those are flames, 火焰. Okay? And it just kept sending out 发出火焰. Now, if you saw that, what would you do? Well, Moses went up to the bush to take a closer look. 他就靠近那个荆棘, the little bush, because he wanted to take a closer look. 他要看得更加清楚. He went over, 他就走到那边了. And as he went over, a voice called out of the bush, Moses, Moses. Whoa, this is a burning bush. It's on fire, and it's not burning up, and it has actually a voice, and the voice knows his name. Moses, Moses. Now, a bush on fire that doesn't burn up and now talks. You must admit that that's very unusual. See, now remember, this is 40 years. He's been a shepherd, 他牧羊40年. He lives out in the desert. Maybe he has seen a burning bush before, but it always burnt up, right? But now, you must admit, 你必须承认 admit, okay, that very unusual, or 非同寻常啊，非同寻常啊，不很寻常啊， very unusual, an unusual word, okay? Going on. The voice went on, take off your sandals, because you are standing on holy ground. Okay, what is a sandal? Well, I imagine you can say, well, they're just shoes, 是鞋子. A sandal sometimes is 凉鞋 or 拖鞋. Anyway, however you want to translate it, 凉鞋. A sandal is some kind of shoe that you put on your feet. So, the voice coming out of this bush that doesn't burn up, this voice says, Moses, Moses, take off your sandals, because you're standing on holy ground. Because where you're standing is holy ground. 你所站的地是圣洁的地，是圣地。Now, we're going to stop now for light on our path, and then I'll come back and tell you the rest of the story. For now, stay by for light on our path. And now for some light on our path. Well, we have a very interesting story that we're talking about today. And I would like to look at the text actually from that very experience. And it's Exodus 3:5.
出埃及记的第3章第5节。
Okay, here's what it says. Then he said, this is God speaking, do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground.
出埃及记3章5节，这里说，上帝说，不要近前来，当把你脚上的鞋脱下来，因为你所站之地是圣地。
Okay, I find it quite interesting, Lena. In the world of the Orient, 亚洲地区, when we go to somebody's house, we take off our shoes.
对对
Probably to keep it clean.
对，是的，特别是在日本哈，去人家家里都要脱下鞋子来，
Yeah.
就是不想弄脏人家的家里。
For me, it's very, very hard. You know why? Because my feet are too big.
哦，
他们的拖鞋不行。
穿不上。OK，
Okay, but why do you think God asked him to take off his sandals?
啊，在这里呢，这个问题我曾经很思想过。我想，当我们来到上帝面前，上帝呼召我们来的时候，是要告诉我们，你现在的地方是我的地方，你要走我的道路，你不要穿着你走人间道路的鞋子，用那种方法做我的事，走我的道路。不知道这样想对不对？
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the meaning is. This is a special place. I am a special God, and you must respect me.
对。
So Moses heard the words, Moses, Moses, take off your sandals because you are standing on holy ground. Heh, Moses must have looked down at his feet. Holy ground? He looks down and he sees dirt, 他就看到泥土, and he sees rocks, and he says, holy ground? 圣地. Oh, no. And in his mind, he's starting to think, what is this? He looked, and it didn't look any different from the rest of the desert floor that he had walked over for 40 years. Remember, he had been there for 40 years. So why was it holy? 他就看这个 desert floor. Okay, do you know what a floor is? Of course, you know a floor in his house is diban. Okay, so the desert floor means the floor of the desert. Okay, so it would be the 沙漠的地板, or just the ground, the dirt, the sand, the rocks. This is just the desert floor. Okay, so he looked down at his feet and he's thinking, holy ground? It didn't look different from the rest of the desert floor he walked over. So he thinks in his mind, why is it holy? See, right now he's thinking, this is a new experience. Then the voice from the bush told him, 从荆棘来的声音呢，从那个灌木来的声音呢，就跟他说了。Then the voice from the bush, I am the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. 我是你祖先的神啊。Abraham, 亚伯拉罕, Isaac, 以撒, and Jacob, 雅各. Now these were the most famous of his ancestors, 他的祖先呢. So, this is what the voice said, I am the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Go ahead. Next. That's what made the ground holy, the presence of God of his fathers. So, 那就是 what is it? 使那个地圣洁的圣地变成圣地 because of the presence of God of his fathers. 他祖先的神的灵格就是在这个地方。Okay, the presence. God is there. And because God is there, that means that the ground that he was standing on was, in fact, holy ground. Now, here's a good question that we can ask. How would you have reacted? How would you have reacted? 如果是你的话，你会有什么样的反应? Of course, it would be clear that this was truly supernatural. 当然，你会很清楚这件事情，这些事所发生的事 is truly 真正的是超自然的。I mean, you never have a bush that doesn't burn up and just keeps on burning, and the bush talks, see, and knows your name. I mean, yeah, this is supernatural. Bushes don't catch fire and not burn up. 它们不会燃烧而不烧灭. Bushes don't catch fire and then not burn up. Nor do they speak. 他们也不会说话. You would certainly pay attention. Yep, that's true. 肯定，如果是你所发生的 you would pay attention. 你肯定会注意，肯定会注意。Sometimes this is what God wants to do. He wants to get our attention. He wants us to pay attention. 要我们注意。When the voice calls you by name, okay, is that possible? I think it is. When the voice calls you by name, that means uses your name and identifies itself. The voice identifies itself as the God of your fathers. 你祖先的祖先的 fathers, I mean your father, your grandfather, your great-great-grandfather. What then? 你会怎么样呢? Go ahead. Go ahead. I think I'd be frightened. Oh, for sure,我肯定会害怕. In fact, not knowing what was coming, 因为不知道将来会发生什么事情, maybe I'd be very frightened and I would be sitting there and worrying. For this meeting was not normal. 不是通常的事. It is unusual. 非常不寻常. It's unusual. What did Moses do? He covered his face. 蒙上他的脸. He covered his face. It's not the burning bush that's important. The burning bush, not important. That just gets your attention. 只不过是教你开始注意，你精神会好得很。The reason for it, that it is important, is because the reason it was God was there. If God is there, it's important, and we need to be respectful. In this case, he asked him to take off his shoes. 要take off his shoes, 不穿鞋子. Okay, 脱鞋子. And next time, we will see why. Stay by for some important words to know. Okay, and now for some words you need to know. First of all, we're going to begin with an interesting one, supernatural.
这里说的是超自然的。
Can you say that in English?
Okay, supernatural.
Natural.
Natural.
Okay, natural. Okay, now that's a hard one to say. Super means 超.
对，
Okay, and natural or nature is 自然.
自然。
Okay, supernatural is we have a supermarket.
超级市场。
Yeah,
对
yeah, and supernatural 超自然的。
现在很多人很喜欢用 super，
Yeah.
超忙 ，super busy。
Yeah. This is very common, even in America. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, another one is to pay attention, a very common one.
注意。
Yeah, so God was saying to Moses, pay attention to me. Okay, take off your shoes. Another one, flames of fire.
火焰。
Okay, flames of fire. This is the bright thing that flickers and flames of fire. And then now we come to the last one, which in Chinese I think is so hard, but maybe you don't think it is. Unusual.
非同寻常。
Whoa, that's a big word.
对，
Okay, unusual. Now we know usual. What's usual?
常常很普通的，
Okay, so if you put unusual,
就变成相反的了，非比寻常，非同寻常，不简单的。
okay, that's right. That's exactly true. Unusual. And of course, it was unusual to see a bush that didn't burn up. And that's all the time we have for words you need to know. Well, we've just looked at a bush that did not burn up. That was, or this was, lesson 44. And things are starting to get very interesting for Moses. He spent 40 years as the son of the king. He spent 40 years running away and being a shepherd, 他做这个牧羊人. And now God is about ready to talk to him. And he gets his attention, 把他的注意力集中于他现在要说的话. He gets his attention, and now he's going to say something. Stay tuned for another interesting lesson next time. A reluctant hero.
That's all for today, and thanks for watching. If you like Ancient Tales for Today, please visit atft.chinesehope.tv. You may also contact us by writing to ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Again, that's ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Tell your friends about Ancient Tales for Today. See you next time.